So again, we're having Sam Zoldock on tonight, who is my number one broker and has really become a great friend too. I'm not sure where he is yet. He probably will be hopping on in a second. But like I said, I posted on school if anybody had like certain questions or thoughts they wanted to ask from him. Obviously, you can do that. But if not, I think really the goal tonight is just kind of do a kind of a live Q&A. Um, Sam wasn't the one, obviously, that for those that were at the live event, Sam wasn't one of my speakers. He was out of town, so it was Sonny Potter that was on. Um, but Sam's the one that has, man, I probably have bought like, I don't know, 6 properties from Sam. So he's been a great teammate. And yeah, I'm excited. So let me give him a call real quick just to confirm where he's at. Be popping on any minute. He texted me this morning too, so unprepared Sam, I guess. Super. Well, maybe not. We can always pivot. We can always pivot. Let's see. I mean, he texted me today and everything. Let's do this as we are waiting for Sam to respond. What is going on? Grant and I actually spoke on the phone a couple of days ago. Grant's got a pretty unique deal tied up in, well, not necessarily tied up yet, but pretty close down in Florida. Grant, you want to go over maybe just briefly on kind of your pretty cool, unique situation?
Yeah, absolutely. Evening, everybody. Yeah, this one. Oh, there's Sam. Sam jumping in there now.
Oh, there he
Uh,
is. Okay,
Nolan,
cool.
you want me to just wait, let Sam go, and then we can wrap up into
Yeah,
that
we
little
can
early
wrap.
later?
Let's do that if you're okay with that. If he
Yep,
pops up.
totally. Yeah.
Let's see. There he is. Hey Sam, what's up, man? Yeah, take it off your mute. Off your mute.
Can you hear me?
There you go. You're back.
Perfect.
There he
Sorry
is.
about
You
that.
made it. What's up, man?
Oh, what's going on, guys? How are you guys doing?
Good. Good to see you, man. Thanks
You.
for making the time tonight. I
Yeah.
was explaining, and you can kind of jump in. I was explaining to everybody. Again, this is my broker, and somehow has become a really great friend of mine too, Sam Zoldock. I was mentioning before, we have. I'm trying to think back at how many deals we've done together. We've probably done 6 or 7 or 8 deals together. Like my whole portfolio has probably come from you. So what I was like I texted you earlier, what I think would be really good, man, is just kind of give a little bit of you, talk about the whole goal of this really is everybody that's in the group right now, we focus on assembling our team, right? How do we build a great network of brokers, of bankers, accountants, attorneys? Kind of give us I think it's important to talk about like how you got into what you're doing, where you are, how you're underwriting deals, how people in their cities can find brokers like you, our relationship, how you underwrite deals, kind of that whole spiel if you're good with that.
Yeah. Sounds great. How much we're on this call for about an hour?
Yeah, we got till 7 o'clock. We really, I mean, it's our call, so we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We don't have
I
a
want to leave
definition, but
more
yeah.
time for Q&A. So
Yeah, that'd be
I'll
great.
if you want to write down your question, I'm just gonna word vomit to you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Put that in the
and
chat.
Um, if you wanna just type a question in the chat, I can go back and answer those as we're, at the end before we do direct Q&A.
Yes.
Nolan, feel free to stop and ask me to expound on anything. Um, really for me, real estate has always been in my blood. I grew up, driving around with my mom and we'd look at, she'd look out the corner at the stoplight and be like, what do you think should go there? Just fun kids talking in the car. And I'd be like, oh, I think Chick-fil-A should go there, or Wendy's should go there, or whatever. And then a few years later down the road, Chick-fil-A or Wendy's would be there. And she's like, you're pretty good at this. But I had the belief, like a lot of people, that real estate was just houses. We grew up Poe, what I say, too poor to afford the R. And so when I thought of real estate, I thought of a residential real estate agent selling my mom a house, or maybe selling somebody a house to flip or something like that. I really didn't even know that rental properties were a thing. And so naturally, everybody starts, when you start going down this journey, you start to ask people a few questions like, oh, I own a few rental houses, or oh, I sell, residential real estate. And that's all great and dandy. But then I started to meet more and more folks who were more and more successful. And really, what I was just trying to figure out as a young kid was, in high school and college, is like, how could I make some money, right? Like, what are my career options out there? And started to realize, oh wow, there's a lot of money. Like the people who I knew who were the most generous, or who were sponsoring the most events, or they're putting, their name on the youth football team league shirts or whatever. Uh, all of those folks owned real estate in some capacity, or they were developers, or they were buying, doing what Nolan does, doing what you guys are doing. And so it kind of became this natural progression. And for me, I kind of backed into it. I worked for a guy at first who owned a bunch of luxury rental properties. So I had experience in short term, you know, kind of Airbnb style properties. We developed 24 luxury townhomes. We started to develop neighborhoods. We owned some office buildings, and we owned businesses as well. So I got exposure to both the private equity side and traditionally, and the real estate side, and eventually just transitioned over to the real estate side. I realized that the people who were traveling around doing what I wanted to do, working less, were real estate people. They weren't, on the private equity side owning these businesses, because a business, you have to be there every day. Real estate, you can collect checks. You don't have to be there every day. You still have to work. That'll probably be my first asterisk or point of the night is, there's no passive income. And I'll Josh on Nolan a little bit, about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years in. Nolan calls me stressed out one day. Oh my gosh, where's the rent on this? Where, there's ants outside the building. Blah, 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 blah. And I said,
He's
yeah,
crushing.
Nolan, this building's been cash flowing and paying down your debt for, and paying you and your investors for a while now, hasn't it? He's like, well, yeah, but like there's ants, and there's this and there's this and there's. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's the difference between a modified gross lease and a net lease. He's like, I can't stand this anymore. Like, we gotta only do net deals now. Blah, blah, blah. And even I'll get phone calls that still are like, this tenant's being annoying. And I'm sure you'll hear along the way as you journey with Nolan about what kind of tenants. I won't get into tonight of what kind of tenants to pursue and which kind of tenants not to pursue. But Nolan will even teach you, the type of tenants to not pursue, right? The type of investors not to pursue. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, I've got this doctor, this lawyer, right, who is going to give me 500 grand to go buy property. That doctor or that lawyer, you might want to give them 500 grand to never invest with you, because they can be so annoying and so up your butt about documents, or our accounting error is 0.93 cents off, right? It's like, well, I'm sorry, like, it's not, like, this isn't brain surgery, this is real estate. And I care about all of the details, but my first asterisk tonight is there is no passive income. So if you thought this was going to be one of those calls or one of these groups that, um, you were going to buy this building and you're going to run off into the sunset and never have to work another day in your life, and you're just going to sit on the beach and collect rent checks, I apologize if that's been your expectation, and you paid to be in the mastermind. I'm sorry. This isn't a get rich quick scheme. This is a get rich guaranteed scheme. that I can guarantee you that if you build your team and you can continue to put in the effort and put in the work, that this is how 99% of wealth has been created in America. That, and this, I'm not trying to sell you on this. I'm just trying to say that there's a there's a pre-scripted way, right? When you open the tax code, when you open the book, the first 20 pages are on how to actually pay your taxes. The rest of the 300 pages in the tax code is how to not pay taxes. And most of those come through the advantages of being a designated real estate professional, by getting to use your depreciation, by getting to go full time into real estate and things like that. So, point
Let's
number
step back for a
two.
second, Sam. I want to ask you, how, because this is exactly what we're here for, to hear your opinion. So if somebody is in, let's say a new person's shoes, they just joined a week ago or a year ago, and they're trying to develop a relationship or really a friendship with a broker like yourself, the relationship that you and I have. What does someone need to do out of the gate? I've tried to think back as to how we've developed a friendship over time, but it's to a point now where you'll call me, say you want to buy something, and you know in your head, hey, if this fits in Nolan's box, I know I'm guaranteed to earn a commission. I'm guaranteed because Nolan will close. How can you help guys that are, again, new or a little more seasoned, like, develop, how can they seek out people like you in their city? What does that relationship development look like?
Yeah. Um, Great question. So I'll give you a couple different strategies, and then I'll tell you, really the one that I would a couple that I would chase down. Um, the first thing that I would do is I would if you live in any sort of large city, more than 50,000 people, you will have what they call a insert city business journal. Or if you're in a smaller town, you'll have a list of classifieds, and it'll be all of the businesses in that area. And you can go to that list, type in Austin Business Journal, Birmingham Business Journal, Atlanta Business Journal. And in there, they publish a book of lists every year. And you can look in that book of lists. You can literally type in Birmingham, Business Journal book of lists 2022 PDF. Don't go to 2024. They're not going to like give it out for free, but you can go back a few years, and find their list. And they'll have a list of all the brokerage houses in that city. And so typically, if you're in a medium-sized metropolitan area like Birmingham, there's going to be 30 to 50 different real estate brokerages out there. And what I would recommend that you do is that you familiarize yourself with all of those brokerages. Typically, the top three in every city are going to be Colliers, one that I'm at, CBRE, or Cushman and Wakefield, or JLL. I guess that's four right there. And then there's always going to be a couple large local players, people that have been in the city for a really, really long time. If you're in Atlanta, one of those is like Bull Realty or things like that. And each one of those is going to have a different specialty. Colliers, for example, is known historically as an office brokerage. And I can talk about Birmingham, for example. Graham and Company has established themselves as the industrial leader. EGS, Cushman and Wakefield, is multifamily and kind of industrial officey, more flex style product. And what you need to do is you need to go and just go on LinkedIn, or, look at the current listings that those folks have and call some of those people. The best question, this would be point number two, the best question when you're trying to meet a broker is to ask, what else do you have? So if I go on Crexy, LoopNet, whatever, and I call a broker with a listing, I'm going to ask that broker, I'm gonna be interested in that listing. But if it remotely fits, let's say it's an industrial listing, but it's overpriced or it doesn't fit, say, hey, I saw your listing. I wanted to learn a little bit about it. ask them a few questions and say, hey, I also wanted to inquire about what else you might have going on. I am a buyer and this is what I'm looking for. Bop, 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 bop. For me, it's pretty easy to have that conversation with someone like Nolan in my back pocket as a broker, because I can say, hey, I have a client who's looking for 10 to 50,000 square feet, and here's our parameters. Do you have anything like that? And I, as a broker, am calling other brokers asking that question. And so, like Nolan will call me, hey, I've got some new investors. I've got cash to put to work. What can I do? I'm calling other brokers. I'm calling property owners. I'm doing all of that legwork for him. But to really establish that, relationship, you just have to start calling. You have to start getting in front of people, building relationships. Another way to do it, would be, it depends on how you're building your team first, and everybody's going to have a different team building strategy, right? So the key players in your team are going to be your attorney, your real estate broker, your banker, your accountant. Who else am I missing, Nolan?
I mean, maybe your property and casualty insurance guy,
Yeah, your
or
insurance
maybe your
person.
infinite banking practitioner, maybe one of those.
Yeah, your infinite banking guy. And let's say, so you've got 5 people on your team, right? All of you probably know one of those 5 people just by living in your city.
That's right.
Now you need to leverage one of those 5 people to meet the next person, and then you meet the next person. If you met me, right, just kind of like how Nolan did, I introduced him to half of those people. I was like, hey, here's who you need to talk to. Nolan was an out of town guy coming to a new city. But now anybody could call Nolan coming to Birmingham and be like, hey, who do I talk to? He's like, you do not want to talk to this accountant. You want to only talk to this accountant. You don't want to talk to this broker. You want to talk to this broker. You don't want to talk to this banker. You want to talk to this banker. And I'll admit, I no Nolan is different in the fact that he's kind of like a small family office, so I do a lot of the things that other brokers typically don't. Typically, brokers have decent banking relationships. I talk to 25 banks every week just to stay updated on the market. So that way, when I bring Nolan a deal, I say, hey, we're not talking to that bank, we're talking to this bank this week. And Nolan can continue to develop those relationships on his own. That's how we've gotten a lot of the good financing on the deals that we've been doing. But I would tell you, so the 2 strategies that I would implore are, well, really 3, is process of elimination. Don't go call the head broker at Colliers International in Atlanta and tell him that you want to buy 5,000 square feet of industrial real estate. He will not care. Straight up. Do not go call Betsy Sue, your local your residential real estate agent. She will not care. But do find on the industrial team the young broker. Probably got 3 years, 5 years of experience, looks young, goofy like me, probably doesn't have as bad of a receding hairline, and say, "Hey, this is my buy box." Now it's gonna be very clear. He's going to say that, like, if he'll have industrial broker or office broker or retail broker, and if he's just a street broker, when you can see that by the listings that he has, that his names are on there. What a street broker is a guy who does a little bit of retail, a little bit of office, a little bit of industrial, does a little bit of everything. We'll make a buck on anything that he has out there. And what you're trying to find in all of this is you probably need to find a localized brokerage that young broker has more access more access to deals and more freedom than another larger company. At CBR, you have to understand how the brokerages work. At CBRE, for example, you start as an analyst, then you become an associate, then you become a VP, then you become a director, then you become a vice president, then you become a managing director. Like, you have to work your way up the chain. And as an analyst, all you're doing is underwriting deals. As an associate, maybe you get to call on deals. But then you've got other brokerages, like a more localized brokerage. Like, I use Bull Realty, for example, or in Atlanta, or I think there's S&K Realty, or there's, localized brokerage. They're going to hire a kid straight out of college. They're going to hand them a phone, and they're going to give them a desk. And they're going to say, start cold calling, and you are the industrial guy. And the only person that's going to help him on any of this stuff is going to be the person who hired him, his mentor in the business. And so that's the kind of person you don't want to find day one. You want to find that person a year or 2 years in because he's hungry to make a commission because he's working only on commission.
That's
You have
right.
to realize, and I'll wrap up here. You can ask me the next question, Nolan, but you have to realize we are working on a strict commission only. So we're playing a game of probability. Why would someone trust you maybe on your first deal to buy a property when they have 50 other people that they could call who they know are guaranteed to close that they've maybe worked with in the past? So you're fighting an uphill battle. Now, does that mean you can't do it? Absolutely not. But you have to have the right team around you. And you have to know how to talk. That's why you're in this mastermind.
Speaking of that, Sam, go in. I think it'd be good to maybe let's talk through the goldenrod deal that we just closed a couple weeks ago and give them the just how that deal came about. But to go on what Sam was saying, how important it is to have the relationships, the banking relationships. I mean, we walked out of that deal. I walked out of that deal with the $6,000 check, which is like wild, you know.
Yeah.
Can you go into the details of how, first of all, why that deal made sense, how we negotiated great terms with that seller, why that particular building is such a great opportunity, and then how we were able to finance the deal all the way through the whole thing too. You know what I mean? Like that whole conglomerate of the deal.
Yeah. So
This is
that
not
deal,
impossible. This is not impossible. It just
yeah.
requires great relationships all the way through from start to finish.
I hope people haven't dropped off the call and already been
No, no,
emailing
this
me
is
like
exactly what we're
dropping
looking
off.
for.
I just am trying to sober people because
Yes.
it's so easy to come online and be like, "Oh my gosh, like passive income, all these people like blah 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 blah." What I'm trying to communicate with you is with a little bit of elbow grease, you can actually create wealth. Because, for
Yeah.
example, this deal that we just did in Goldenrod, I told Nolan, I said, "Hey, um, once we sign a new lease with a new tenant, um, you know, it'll be 20 years. If we sign 2 10-year leases, right? So we sign a 10-year lease and then we renew that person in 10 years. I said, you could give this building to your kid and he would be set for his entire life because in 20 years, that $1 million building will be paid off. It will have appreciated. It'll cash flow the whole time. And you give that to a 22-year-old kid, you give $1 million building to a 22-year-old kid, uh, you know, over his lifetime, he'll be able to retire off of that. It's like that's the kind of long-term wealth. And then you partner that with your infinite banking account and things like that. Becomes really exponentially powerful. Um, all of that said, again, it's not a get rich quick scheme, but it's a get rich guaranteed stream if you do and put in the hard work. And well, that doesn't mean I can't, don't
So
quote
go
me
into
on
the
that.
details of it. Go into the
Yeah,
details
yeah.
of how
So,
we
so
discovered
I
it.
found
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I actually found this building looking for another client. I was trying to lease another property, and a client, the person I had cold called said, "Hey, I don't need 1,000 square feet. I need 15,000 square feet." I was like, "Okay, what can I find in your area that's 15,000 square feet?" So I started calling around other brokers, and this guy said, "I don't have 15,000 square feet. I've got 26,000 square feet." And I said, "Okay, can I come see it?" Just always being curious. So I go and I meet with the broker. I take that client who's looking for 15,000 square feet. He can't make it work. It's too big. I was like, "Man, this is a good building though. Who should I?" And so instantly Nolan comes to mind because he's one of my best clients. He always, we're always closing on deals. So I call Nolan and I say, "Hey, this is the deal." And he's like, "Okay, like I'm interested. Let's go look at the building." Well, then, as we get dive deeper into the
Why did
deal,
you
the
think of
tenant,
me before you go forward? Why did you think of me? Like what? Why? Like what is like? So what I'm getting at is like for everyone here, like what? Why did you think of me as the investor on that property So where
Yeah.
people, when they go back to their city, how can they make the broker think of them when that opportunity pops up? What was it about what we've done in the past that, or how it was where you're like, damn, I got to call Nolan? What
What
was
was
the
Yeah.
the trigger?
switch? What's that,
Huh?
Grant?
I was saying, what was the trigger that you
Yeah.
saw or knew
What
or
was the
whatever that
trigger?
you
Yes.
instinctively just said that's Nolan? Had
Yeah.
his DNA all over
Well,
it.
I mean, Nolan and I have a playbook, and Nolan's risk appetite is prime for the playbook that I like to, I like to run the same play. Um, I'm Nick Saban. I will run the ball down your throat, and we'll just run the same play over and over and over again. And that play is this: buy industrial real estate that has good bones at lower than replacement cost basis. So at a if it costs $120 to build the building, I want to buy it at $80 because I have equity in the building already. And so for us, I know that Nolan's risk appetite, when I call him with a vacant building and I say, hey, this is the situation, it's vacant, or there's a special situation, there's some hair on the deal. I know that Nolan's okay to take it down. If I wanted to sell a building let's say the same building was, and this building was a special situation. The tenant in the building wanted to lease back the building for a short amount of time, 6 to 8 months. Typically, that won't work with an investor because they have to pay the carried interest costs along the way. And that building wouldn't have cash flowed that way. So, if someone was just selling this building, let's say if it was a 15, my client that I was looking for, a 15,000 square foot client, I would call that guy when the building is at market rate. So maybe it's 100 listed at $120 a foot, right at construction costs, but he needs to be there. I'm like, hey man, this is the property for you. I know Nolan's not going to buy that property, and I'm not going to waste his time calling him on it because it's not below market, and he can't lease it out and it can't cash flow. It's just a math equation, right? But an owner occupant can cash flow because their business is there. They're just paying off the building for themselves. Owner occupants can always typically pay more for real estate than investors can. So I know that Nolan's an investor. I know that he doesn't mind some risk, and I know that he can get creative. Those are the three reasons why I would call Nolan. And so in this deal, like I mentioned, there was a short-term sale leaseback that we found out about while we were negotiating the deal. He had it listed that there was an off-market deal, a relationship that another broker had. So because I have a relationship with another broker, I knew that the deal was for sale. And the owner wanted $1.2 million. Well, we said, okay, we can do $1.2 million, but you need to move out before we close. He said, that's impossible. We said, okay, well, why don't we do a short term sale leaseback? And, we threw out a rent. He threw out a number when we started to negotiate back and forth. Finally, we said, what if we just say, hey, you can have free rent for 8 months, but you have to play on our terms. You have to play at this price, but you get free rent. He loved that idea. And so because we gave him 6 months of free rent, we got the building at, I think it was million 50 or $1,075,000, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And that, when we got that building under contract, Nolan took his contractor out there and he saw the vision that I had for the building, which was simply to do this: add another roll up door, spruce up the office, paint the outside, add some parking, and you're off to the races and getting, market rate rent on a wonderful building. There's some other opportunities that we have with this building to contact the owner next door and do a ground lease. We've done things for extra parking or extra storage, things like that. All of that to say, what made this deal really strong and why Nolan could walk away with a check is two things. We went to the bank and we said, hey, we basically said we talked them into looking at the free rent period as in the rehab costs. So they were looking at the 6 months of interest carry. For one, that's why we needed interest only. And two, we needed to add extra extra amount to the loan amount so that we could cover the rent or cover the note through the period. So we're basically using the bank's money to pay the note. And then on top of that, Nolan said, "Hey, owner," and Nolan always makes me get uncomfortable with this because most people hate owner financing in real estate. But Nolan,
My special little secret sauce.
yeah, Nolan, the thing you have to realize is you just have to be confident because, um, you know, you're helping these people, and Nolan and I have dialed this in to
Sam was a
really.
big part of that. Sam was a huge part of creating that seller financing calculator that everyone has on their pro forma. Sam was 90% of that.
So, what I like to take ownership for is how we dialed in, how we present it,
That's right.
which is, hey, we do this every day. What we do every day is we buy and sell real estate. What you don't do every day, property owner, is buy and sell real estate. This is probably one of the bigger transactions that you've had. You got to understand if the owner does that or not before you offend the guy. But you say, hey, look, we do this every day. We understand that we can actually help you make more money if you let us present a couple options to you through owner financing. And you don't have to believe me. You can go talk to your accountant by it. But if you leave a little bit of money in this deal, then you could actually make more money and not pay Uncle Sam as much. And everybody hates paying Uncle Sam, no matter who you are. So when people hear that you want to help them, and you can even ask, there's a statistic out there that if you say, "Can I help you?" or would you mind helping me?" That over 75% of the people that their immediate knee jerk response is going to be yes, because people want to help. And so you said, Can you help me figure out something? I think I can save you money on your tax situation."
Okay.
We do owner financing on some of our deals, and I know that that's got a negative connotation, but you can leave a little bit of money in this deal and, you're going to save 100, 200, however much you can run. We've got a calculator for that kind of does it at a high level. And, typically people like that.
This was
And so, when I guess what I'm trying to say is when Nolan took that to the owner, um, he was a pretty creative guy, and he really appreciated that. He really liked that, and so he came back and he said, "I'll enter finance if you give me 2 extra months of free rent." We're like, "Abso-freaking-lutely." So
Yeah.
Nolan's now in the deal for no money. He's got an 8-month short-term sale leaseback. He's using the bank's loan to pay down the interest for the first 8 months. And then we structured an agreement that the current owner who we're buying the building from, he has to pay us market rate rent if he doesn't move out at the end of 8 months. Which, if you walked in this building, he's got so much junk that he's going to have to be paying us market rate rent because there's no way he could move out all of this junk.
For those that were at the live event, you got a chance to I know Grant wasn't there. I know Richard was there. Trying to look at Bruce was there, a couple other guys were there. You got a chance to walk through that building. It's amazing how much stuff that it just keeps going on. It's wild.
Yeah, absolutely wild. Um, and so that's how Nolan was able to walk away from that deal with a check. That deal is a textbook example. Now, does that deal happen? Does that deal happen every month? Does that happen every day? No. What I have to remind people, and this is a quote from my boss, because when I was young in the business, I was getting really frustrated. I'd been about a year into the business and I hadn't closed a deal yet. And I looked at him, I was like, "Man, like, I just don't get it. I'm such a failure." He said, "Do you know," and Nolan's a baseball player, so he relates to this a lot. He said, "Do you know what your batting average has to be to get into the Hall of Fame?" I was like, "I know nothing about baseball. Like, you're gonna have to educate me." And he's like, "Most people get in the Hall of Fame with like a 2.75 or 3.0 hitting like ERA
Batting
and batting average."
You
And I
really
was like,
baseball.
"What does that mean?" He was like, "Essentially, they're striking out all the freaking time, and then they're finally getting a hit. And because they get a couple hits for every 10 times they strike out, they get a couple hits. there in the Hall of Fame. He said, "That's a lot like real estate. You're not going like this isn't basketball. You're not expected to score every 2 seconds. You're like this isn't this isn't tennis where you're scoring a point every other hit. Like the way that you score in this business is you get on base."
Right.
And Nolan has bought into that, and a lot of you just have to kind of buy into that mentality. Everybody, I've got some investors. I love to tell this story. My first 2 investors ever, I returned them 4x their capital in 9 months post-tax. And, now when I call them and I say, "Hey, I've got a deal," they're like, "Oh, man," and it could be a good deal, 2x your money in a few years or something like that. They're like, "Man, well, what happened to 4x in my money in less than a year?"
My God.
And, I don't even call them anymore, to be honest, because I say, "Look, guys, like, that's never gonna happen again, and if it does, it's by the grace of God and God alone, because it's not up like, I'm not that good." We just literally we didn't time the market, we didn't do anything, we just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And, it's like when if you bought a house, to live in, and then, the next day the state comes by to eminent domain it, and you make them pay an extra $100,000 more. It's like you didn't know that. You just got really lucky, right?
What you're
Uh,
saying is, if you think about it, is like playing the game, and that like no, it's unfair for somebody to your point is someone, whether they join this or whether they start reading about real estate or whatever, it's unfair to themselves to believe that they're going to have a $16 million building closed in 3 months. Like
yeah,
it's unfair to themselves, and to manage your expectations to where you expect perfection. Like you said a minute ago, this is for everybody. When you're going up to the plate, those hitters that you're talking about, Sam, everybody, when they're hitting, they expect to get on base and get a hit every single at bat. They prepare to get on base and get it and find a hole every AB. The fact is, it's just not going to happen that way. But the only way that you can get on base is if you prepare properly, you have the confidence to go up to the plate and swing the bat, right? Like, you don't get, if you don't come up swinging, you're gonna go down looking, kind of thing. So, not get all philosophical and emotional, but it's like the game is not about, how you handle the wins, it's how you handle the failures. When you're like, you feel like you're beside yourself on an iron island, you're like, damn, I feel like I'm grinding, I'm not seeing anything move. But in reality, like Sam said, it took him a year before he closed his first deal, and now you and I, Sam, we're doing multiple deals a year, and I'm not even one of your best clients, I'm just another guy. So what I'm getting at, to hammer on this, and then we'll open this up for questions, is if you stay in the game, if you keep playing the game and just stay consistent with your actions every day, your preparation, the way that you approach the at bat, even if you punch out a couple of times, you get into the Hall of Fame by getting 3 hits out of 10 at bats every single time. So that's would be the advice that, like, even for myself, I'm not some expert. I haven't created this crazy success rate or anything, but Sam and I are consistent every single day. We show up every single day to work and in preparation and great communication. And eventually, when those opportunities come up, because you prepared yourself, you built the foundation, you can pounce on opportunities. Like when Sam calls me, we didn't have to think twice. We had the banker that was totally not even okay with it. He was recommending having the seller leave money in the deal. Like, that's a relationship that most people would say, "Oh man, what, the bank's not okay with that." It's like, this guy's like, "Dude, you should try and get him to leave money in the deal." You know? So that's my recommendation to everybody, is to not over expect things out of the gate. But if you stay consistent with your attitude and your work ethic, it is guaranteed to happen. Like Sam said, it might not happen overnight, but it is guaranteed to happen if you stay in the game. So that's my, my football, baseball excitement speech, I guess.
yeah. And
So
I'll say this before we open it up, Nolan, real quick. Um, it looks like there's 12, 14 people, other people on this phone call.
yeah,
Um, I would suspect that if everybody had their camera on, or you wanted to drop a little thumb in the chat, that most of you are experts or very strong in your current field. So maybe you have a W-2, maybe you are a software engineer. I don't know. I would just expect that you're probably not doing a real estate deal every day. You're probably doing something else every day. And I would tell you that one of the things that can help you the most is being an LP, a limited partner, in a deal with somebody like Nolan or another trusted LP. And I'm not going to throw out any names, but please, I implore you, if you have an LP or somebody raising money, like please come talk, like please call me, please call Nolan. We will vet the deal completely free of charge,
Right.
so that you don't lose money with a shitty LP. Pardon my French. But there are a lot of scammers out there who will just take your money and offer you crappy returns. We're seeing that right now all throughout the country. We're seeing lots of lawsuits going on, but it's a great way to learn. You don't have to be the quarterback. You don't have to be the all-star. You can be like, this is the great thing about real estate. You could invest, let's say you had $50,000 to invest. You could invest that $50,000 in every single one of Nolan's deals and make out just as well as Nolan percentage wise on the next every single deal he does until he dies. Now, Nolan might make more because he doesn't have to put as much money in the deal and he gets a carry in the deal. But pound per pound, your dollar and his dollar are going to equally make as much money. If he gets a 2x equity multiple, you're going to make a 2x equity multiple. Now, that doesn't count the carry and the things. But when Nolan puts in 100 grand and he signs the debt, and you put in 100 grand and sign the debt, both of you guys are going to get money back. And most deals are structured that way. Everybody gets so passionate that GPs make their carry or make their fee or whatever. Well, you can't complain when your capital is 2xing. What other entity, what other investment can you go out there and say, you can't go to Warren Buffett and be like, 2x my equity in 2 or 3 years. And I want control and I want to see I want to choose the accountant, I want to choose the insurance, and I want to be a part of this. Warren Buffett would tell you to kick rocks, right? He has enough of his own money. But when you were someone like Nolan, or with maybe it's guys together in this group or something like that, you can easily say, hey guys, like this is what we want to do. We want to learn. Investing with somebody else is one of the greatest, most powerful ways to learn. And if you invest in a good asset with a good sponsor, you're probably not going to lose money. Not guaranteed, but probably not.
Yeah.
And we can even talk about, there's a deal that we did last year that didn't go exactly how we planned with some of Nolan's LPs, but we still came out positive because in that situation, and it ended up being great for everybody. It wasn't the home run that we thought it would be, but it definitely was a double. We didn't lose money on the deal. So as long as we can get our investor capital back and make money still, that's what I call a win. That's like your low side win. Your upside win is, hey, we triple or 3x or 4x our capital or whatever. So I can talk about this all night. Nolan will give you guys all my
15 minutes. Let's open it up to questions or thoughts from everybody that's kind of on here. Anybody have anything on their mind for Sam? Anything?
Yeah, this is Brad. I got a question. If you're trying to put a deal together, and you're offering a price that is, let's say, below what they bought the property for, have you ever been in a situation where you're trying to sell them the offer of seller financing, even though they're not getting any gains?
You have to understand the situation. Do they have, if they have bank debt on the property, then they're likely not going to be able to sell or finance it in that way. That property would, if they can't offload it, they're probably not able to sell or finance. They'll probably have to give that property back, which in that case, you need to understand who the banker is, and then you need to become that banker's friend, because he'll likely call. You'll be the first call when they foreclose or when they start to go through special servicing. But
Well, no, I'm saying, obviously when they purchased it, right? The price that you offer might still be over their mortgage value, their remaining balance, but it's less than the value that they bought it at. Does that make sense?
yes,
At $1 million building, he borrowed $750 from the bank, and he's going to sell it to you for $900. So he's going to lose his equity, his initial injection.
yeah,
Right.
that would be a really complicated situation, because you'd have to be getting basically, like, he could only owner finance, like, 200,000, and in that situation, I don't think you could get a bank to give you, um like, in that example, right? If it was $1 million property and you were offered 900,000 and he had 700,000 of dollars, of debt on it, I don't think you could get traditional bank financing enough. You'd still have to end up bringing money to the deal, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay, so it may not make sense for deals like that because I was in a situation where I was trying to offer that, but then I looked at his mortgage, did the amortization in our pro forma, and it was yeah, it didn't seem like it made sense, right? He wouldn't have any, let's say, capital gain. So it really, I don't know if it would have been a benefit to him. And obviously, you're saying that the bank might not even go for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would be you'd still have to bring money to the deal. You have to understand his motivation, why is he selling, right? Is he selling because he had a tenant move out and he can't release the property? Or is he
Yeah.
did a family member die? Like, there that's a very unique situation because let's say he did nothing wrong, right? Let's say it was a
Mhm.
multifamily deal, and last year or 2 years ago, multifamily is trading at a 6 cap. Now it's trading at a 7 cap, and he lost the cap rate compression. Like, he's up a creek without a paddle for now. He's not up a creek without a paddle for forever, unless the underlying asset is just a piece of trash.
Right. Okay. All right. And then the other question I had, I was talking to Nolan earlier about this. I'm in let's say evaluating a deal where the owner of the property is currently the owner user and he wants to sell the LLC. The only asset the LLC owns is the property. And the reason why he does that or wants to do that is because he wants to build in a term in the contract in the purchase agreement that he's able to buy the property back in about 5 years and he doesn't want the taxes to uncap. Have you been in a situation where you've done a similar deal? And I guess what's your advice on it? Is there a certain approach you take? What things are important to understand? Um, and
Have you
anything
seen
else
his
you can provide?
Yeah, have you seen his financials on the underlying business?
Uh, no, not yet. But that's one of the questions, I have is what information should I be looking at to vet that deal
Yeah.
fully?
Are you in West Texas?
Oh, I'm in Michigan,
Okay,
Detroit
nice.
area of Michigan. Yeah,
Um, Nolan had talked to me about another situation, so I was like, "Oh, I might have heard about this one." So what you're kind of describing is a sale leaseback where the owner
correct,
user sells the property after putting a lease, and signs a lease simultaneously at closing,
correct.
um, to create a liquidity event. The reason you would do this is either, you cannot value liquidity for somebody else. Maybe
Hey,
he
hold
just
on.
wants to have cash. Maybe he wants to retire. Maybe he wants to grow his business. Why would he keep owning a asset that's going to return 8 to 10% when his business might be growing 15 or 20% year over year? Maybe he wants to go buy another lake house. He can do
Yeah,
whatever.
he wants to get some cash and go invest in something else, right?
Yeah.
Or buy something else.
And so,
He
I
has a
guess,
unique circumstance, Sam. The
huh?
unique circumstance that Brett showed is that the guy does not want to sell the property. He wants to sell the LLC because with the lease back because he doesn't want to retrade the when they go to reassess the value of the real estate. He thinks the property taxes are going to go up. If he's paying
Yeah.
4,000 a year, he pops it for $1 million more. Property taxes go up to 20,000. It's going to get more expensive. So he's trying to get
Right.
cute with this entity ownership, which I think it seems like a lot of work to save themselves a couple $1,000s in taxes. But
Yeah, what I would do is, I would up the
experience that.
rent. I would go back to him and I would say, I'll let you buy this for less on the back end. You have to pay more in taxes in the meantime, but we're not going to play around buying this entity because though it only owns one asset, you don't know what else has been out there on that entity. And you don't want to assume that liability, and you're going to end up paying more. Both of you, this is honestly where it comes down to. Both of you, Brett, are going to end up paying more in attorney's fees than those taxes are going to increase.
Sure. Good point.
Yeah.
And so what I would just say is like, look, we'll use $1 million again. If the building's $1 million, like you're paying $1 million, he wants to do a sale lease back, he's going to pay you $80,000 a year, so it's an 8 cap, right? And you then say, but you guys had agreed, hey, I'll buy the LLC for, I'll buy it for $1 million, and I'll sell it back to you in a year or in 5 years for 1.5 million. Well, I would tell him, hey, pay me 85 or $90,000 every year in the lease term, and I'll sell it back to you for 1.4 million or something. I would give him a deal, that evens out numbers wise, and you kind of got to do the time value of money calculation of what a dollar is worth today versus a dollar, in 5 years from now.
5 years. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't take on that liability. And honestly, like, seems just like a really ticky tacky thing.
Agreed.
That you're gonna. It honestly sounds like this is somebody. If I had to guess, if I had to stereotype this guy, he's an owner operator for his business, maybe a services based business. He's never gotten out of the truck. He's still very involved in each of the projects, and he hasn't talked to an attorney or a banker in a really long time.
Yeah, I know he owns multiple properties, multiple businesses, so I don't know if that's really it, but maybe, yeah, it's because the deal I'm talking about, he's actually got 2 properties that he wants to do this with they're both about 25,000 square feet.
Wow.
So
Are they industrial?
yeah, they meet essentially the metrics that Nolan, sets up this collective
Yeah.
for, right? 10 to 50, a couple bay style doors, 16-foot plus ceiling heights. This one's about 2 miles from the freeway, but I mean, it checks all the boxes.
Yeah, I'd want to get the financials on those businesses and see
Yeah.
if they're currently paying. Do you know if those businesses are currently paying rent, or are they not paying any rent payments?
I mean, he owns them. I'd have to dig into that. But I mean, I think that makes sense to get the financials on it.
Yeah,
And
you want to make sure that business can support paying rent, if it's not already. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is making sure that he's paying, even if I have to run the numbers based on the market, but even if he's paying higher rent, if he, you know, kicks rocks, the day after close, I got to be able to lease that space back out. So it needs to make
yeah,
sense in that realm
le-
of
le-
it.
leasing space at an above market rent seems really good, but it hurts the value of your building long term. If we saw, Nolan and I looked at a deal that I told Nolan not to do. I don't know if he's doing it or not, but market rate rent was about $18 a foot, and the guy wanted to pay like $40 a foot. I said, Nolan, if you get this building,
not doing that. We're not doing it. We're not doing it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
If you get this building back, this is going to be, you're only going to get $18 a foot, maybe. Just because market rent is 10 doesn't mean you're going to get 10. Just FYI for everybody out there.
Yeah. Who
Yeah.
else has another thought? Brett, if anything else, we can take that one. I can send Sam that email that you sent, and he can give maybe some feedback if you're good with that, Sam.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. That'd be great. Thanks,
those
guys.
seem like
Appreciate the feedback.
great deals, Brett. Pending some of those things. So,
Yeah.
would love to
Okay.
help.
Who
All right.
else has
Thank you,
something
Sam.
on their mind?
How do you go about tackling vacant properties and trying to sort of deal together that way?
You mean like buying vacant, leasing out like that?
Exactly.
Yeah. Really, it's just all in your pro forma. Nolan will probably be teaching that here in a couple weeks. I don't know the schedule, but um, when you're buying vacant, the things that you have to include in your pro forma, basically your all-in cost. So let's say you bought the building for 300,000. You're gonna have to pay a leasing commission. You're gonna have to pay possible tenant improvements, and you're gonna have to pay the carry costs. So what does it cost to pay the loan amount for, at least a year is what I model. These buildings can sit for a year. Yeah. Uh, so this would go for that. This would go in that market rent or projected rehab. I'm not focused on this what he's sharing right now, but
This is
uh
a quick little offer calculator if the building's vacant. Buying something at a building market cap rate, how much you think you can get, what's the projected rehab, and then deducting what you think the intrinsic value is minus all of these costs. I need to probably include some holding costs too, but I kind of put that in the projected rehab costs.
yeah.
But
Uh So, you know, just real who asked this question? Where'd he go? Dellis. Uh Back of the napkin math, right? So if you're gonna buy a building at $300,000, for me, if I'm gonna do a vacant deal, if I'm gonna do a value add deal, I want to achieve a 10% unlevered rate of return or a 10% cap rate. So 10% of 300,000 is $30,000. Well, that's all great. But what I didn't include in that is I need to include my carry costs. I need to include, my rehab costs. So let's say I can, let's say I get a 5-year deal, right? So $30,000 times 5 is 150 times 6% is $9,000. So call it $10,000. And so 310 plus, some carry costs, plus maybe I gotta paint it and put another bathroom or another roll up door. So let's say I'm all in at 350. So I need to rent this building out now for $35,000 a year. So, if all of that, if market rent equals, for the building, so building square footage times market rent is $35,000. Roll Tide, here we go. Where it gets hard is a lot of these deals are probably not like that. It's like, oh, well, this works at 300, it doesn't work at 350. Then you just have to decide, is it worth it to you, right? Is it worth it to you to achieve only a 9% rate of return? And how hard is that going to be? Not every real estate deal is done the same. So, if you do a deal in a town of 5,000 people or a town of 5 million people, everybody in their town probably has Main Street where the ice cream store has been for 50 years. Well, if you buy that building and the ice cream store shuts down, well, there was an ice cream store there for 50 years. Guess what probably is going to release that space? An ice cream store. Guess how fast is it going to be? Probably really fast. But if you're in a town of 5,000 people and you've got a warehouse that the owner used it for since World War II, and then he goes out of business, guess who's likely not going to lease that building? Somebody else, because he's been in there for so long. It's just got, and there's not a lot of tenants in a 5,000 square foot town, right? You're gonna get a localized entrepreneur who maybe wants to start something up, doesn't really need 5,000 square feet. There's just a lot of risk. So you have to analyze these value add deals very, very closely.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody
Anybody
else as we start to get wrapped up?
I got one question real quick, if you still got a minute.
Yeah.
So, it sounds like you're very in tune with like the seller financing part of Nolan's deals. So, and I see that as being like very important for your guys' like relationship and being on the same team. And my concern is maybe the broker that's been sending me deals isn't as in tune with that. Um, So I guess like how any advice for maybe finding the right brokers that would be in tune with that, or do you think it's common that brokers might not be as favorable of that offer? Because I guess my concern is like right now I've offered on 3 properties through this broker that sent me deals. One of them, so they weren't interested. 2, we still haven't heard back. Let's say, we keep going at this trend and I'm here 10 plus properties in a couple months, no offers have gone through, whatever the number is. Are they going to say, well, I don't want to keep sending this guy deals. He's wasting my time. He's offering on properties above a 10 cap and asking the seller to keep 25% in the deal.
Yeah. Great question.
That's a good question.
Asking every time Nolan calls me and asks to owner finance a deal, I literally want to punch him in the teeth. It's the most uncomfortable conversation to have, especially because I know owner financing. I know how great it is. Typically, a lot of our deals have another broker involved. So I have to then explain to another broker and convince them how owner financing works before they can, like, I have to educate a middleman to then go educate the owner, right? So it's really hard. Um, Man, I'll tell you, if you offer on 10 properties in the next few months, like, you are doing really, really well, whether none of them close or not. I analyzed 3,000 deals, underwrote 400, offered on 75 to close 1. So now that deal that I closed was a 35 IRR. So, was I just too conservative? Potentially, but did it work? Yeah. My question to you would be, do you have to have owner financing to buy your deal?
I mean, I don't have to. That's what Nolan preaches, and definitely, ideally, what I like to do. It sounds like it makes the most sense.
Yeah.
It definitely does. And on top of that, too, the reason why in my book the owner financing is so important is because I'm big on the tax deductions with depreciation. I mean, it's whenever you go and give up equity to other people when they inject capital, whether it's a partner, whether it's your mom or dad or whoever, you have to give up a ton of equity, which means you give up a ton of tax deductions. I'd rather think about cash flow as the cherry on top. I'm buying this real estate for the depreciation. That's the key to the whole game, is the tax implications. And to go on top of what Sam, and we can get moving here soon, Sam. I know you got a thing. When I think about having the seller leave money in the deal, and again, it's your relationship with your broker too, Griffin, because Sam knows if I say, give me that seller's phone number, give me his number. Sam knows that I know what I'm doing, and I'll call the guy, and he knows that actually if I speak with the seller, he probably has a higher likelihood of closing because I can get on the same page as the seller. If you've got a broker that's like, well, we don't really like that, then your broker doesn't have confidence in you maybe as a closer, if that makes sense. So
I would say, Griffin,
if that's fair to
Nolan,
say, Sam, if whatever your
yeah.
opinion.
Well, Nolan just hit on a really good point. And Griffin, again, I don't know you from Adam. I don't know your financial situation. If you're in the mastermind, I can kind of assume that you're trying to get into real estate or you're trying to buy deals. And Nolan's motivation and your motivation are very different. Nolan built a portfolio of real estate, transitioned into commercial real estate, and is trying to take advantages of these tax deductions. You are trying to build a portfolio of real estate, right? So for you to just get in the game, you don't have to have owner financing. You might just have to give away a majority of the farm when you raise equity, right? So you can come to Nolan, you can come to a Nolan, or you can maybe partner with some of the guys in your mastermind. Like, let's say this deal that you offered 25% owner financing on, the lady said no. Well, did they take your offer if there was no owner financing?
That I don't know, but that's a good question.
So if you can negotiate a great deal and they just they want to say no on the owner financing part, then don't let the owner financing hold you up from doing a great deal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's Look at all the people on this call. all of them want to invest in real estate. Nolan also wants to invest in real estate. So if you bring him a great deal, he's going to put up the money. You might just not get 70% of the equity. You might get 30% of the equity. But 30% of the equity over time, if you continue to bring great deals, like, man, if you could offer, like, legitimately, if you offered on a deal a week and you got one of those under contract a month at a great deal, like, that's like batting like 1,000. Like, no one is doing that, especially in this market. I would tell you right now, confidentially, Colliers is down 75% year over year on our sales volume. Last year, we were doing over $1 billion in sales volume in 2022. We're barely going to touch over 200 this year as a company. So to say that real estate transactions have slowed is very true, which is perfect for guys like us. Now we can get in the game because the people who are here are long-term players. They want it. If they're selling right now, they have to sell. And so what I tell you is just don't get caught up on the owner financing part. Offer it and then say, well, I don't have to close this way. That's what's going to help a broker like continue to send you deals is like, man, I want to offer the owner financing because it's beneficial to me, but I don't have to have it. Right. Like, we can keep offering all this stuff. So that's what I would tell you.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No worries.
Okay. Anybody else before we get moving out of here? I know it's getting a little late. Okay. Well, obviously, Sam is one of my best guys. Sam, I want to thank you again for making it on. What I'll do to everybody is Sam, if you're not opposed to it, I know you're not, just put your email and everything in our school chat. That way someone can reach out to you just maybe for some information or if they just, if you're not opposed to that, Sam, I don't want to put you.
Yeah. Feel free to reach out to me. Nolan's got my cell and my email. Can't promise that I can talk to all of you every day of the week for the rest of our lives, but would love to help you guys on a deal as it makes sense. And stay. If anything, you leave this call, just keep at it, keep chopping wood, like keep sharpening, keep learning. I mean, I would tell you, the biggest thing about this group is you have access to someone who's been successful in doing this. So come to Birmingham, like call Nolan, be like, hey, can I come to lunch and dinner with you? Can I come get coffee with you? You can sit in his office. You can look at, Nolan is literally the most free book out there in the world. Like, he'll show you the P&Ls. He'll show you how he structured the deal. He'll introduce you to literally everybody. So continue to stay after it. Continue to stay after it.
Yes. What do they say? Chop wood, carry water, or is that what it is? Yeah, just keep on.
That's right.
Keep on, keep on.
Well, awesome. Sam, thank you, brother. We appreciate you, man. Thank you, everyone, for making it on tonight. I'll get this thing posted here, and we'll go from there. Sam, thank you so much, brother. Thanks everyone.
Guys.
See you guys next time.
Take care.